So the election dust is beginning to settle here in the US, and I'm starting to see more women move into rage, which has me thinking about sacred feminine rage. I asked you Threads mavens what's pissing you off lately, and here's what I got for replies. Sorjande Seder says the large overcompensating trucks barreling through traffic, riding everyone's behind, being nuisance, bully, LDE jerks with hater riot stickers all over them. I get flushed hot flashes and have to restrain myself from irrational behavior. Yeah, some road rage going on there. Mimi the Mama Blog says, I hate it when everyone comes into the kitchen while I'm cooking in peace, especially near the stove and the sink. Totally hear you. Christina MGP says, election results and the shit show unfolding aside, the fucking constant noise of the goddamn leaf blowers. Like, give it a rest, Richard. Fuck. Christina, I hear you. Full Stop Podcast says, the mother pause. It's the menopause and it affects all women, but often it feels like midlife women who are childless not by choice are overlooked when talking about menopause. The ending of periods at any age can throw us into grief. So thank you so much for shedding some light on that. And then Buried by Life says, work. We have a new system that we're months into and every day is Groundhog Day. Oh, I hate that feeling. Something always needs to be fixed and it's always people yelling about something and I can't seem to ever complete a task. Ugh, sounds like undefined root problems. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, and I think our sacred feminine rage differs a bit than meno rage, which is something that I talk about in today's episode of Midlife by Design. Overall, I'm diving into why women find rage to be such a difficult emotion, and honestly, why that's by design. If you've ever felt silenced or ignored, like what you had to say didn't matter, or like you've lost touch with your own inner fire, then this episode is for you. Heads up that I launched the F-bomb quite a few times. Already did that a couple of times in the intro here, so grab your headphones if necessary. If not necessary, I invite you to shout a few yourself as you listen. I'm your host, Lori Lisai, human design coach here to help midlife mavens shed others' expectations and be who you came here to be. It's time to tap into our rage as a portal for transformation so that we can create the world in which we want to live. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. Today, I have an episode for you about rage, meno rage, midlife rage, just this concept of being generally pissed off. And I am definitely in that spot, having had some distance between the recent election and now at the time of this recording, when things are, starting to be announced in terms of like cabinet appointees, and that's one of the things that happens to be pissing me off at the moment. And it's this topic that I'm continually seeing pop up on social media. So I felt like it was an appropriate time to release an episode, look at this through the lens of midlife and through human design, and see what I could do to offer some support and help you to understand what is going on. So, angry and selfish is like the worst thing that a woman could possibly be in our society. And it's because women are taught to be kind, to be sweet, to sacrifice their needs and wants. That is seen as the feminine and the responsibility of women to hold that space of kindness and basically being selfless. And so when women are angry, they are actually dismissed or they can be met with the feeling of like, wait, whoa, where's that coming from? That's not normal. You aren't allowed to feel that emotion. That's not an emotion that women should be able to feel. And I think we have to be careful not to conflate the idea of being mean with being honest. Because I think a lot of times when women get to this point, and especially in midlife where they give less fucks, which we've talked about, they tend to just let things come out that maybe they wouldn't have before, right? They have less of a filter, maybe per se. And oftentimes it's the first thing that comes out that was on their minds or that feels really true and honest. And it might sting a bit because it's so honest. And I think that we need to be careful about not then conflating that honesty with meanness. So for example, if you get an invite from a friend of yours for, let's go out and get a drink or go to a movie or something, and you're just fucking tired. It's Friday night, you're spent, you'd love to see them, but really you just want to curl up in your PJs and watch The Diplomat. And so you just say, no, I can't do that, or that's not going to work for me tonight. And that is just honesty. And I think that we need to start supporting one another as women to be able to do that without worrying that we're going to hurt one another's feelings. When I talk about this idea of society kind of placing these expectations on us about being sweet and kind and sacrificing our needs, I think we do that to ourselves as well as women, right? Like we have expectations of one another. And I think this is also an invitation for us to get curious about that and wonder, do we need to actually place those expectations on one another? And can we just be okay and not make it mean something about us? So I did a little poll on social media to prep for this podcast, and I asked you, why are you pissed? What pisses you off? And I want to address the menopause here because I feel like there's maybe this split a little bit where there's a hormonal thing that's going on that can give us less fucks and can lead to us having these emotional highs and lows that's related to estrogen. And then there's this other path that's more about the societal norms that we are rejecting and the anger, very justified, I might add, that comes from that. So first I want to just address the menopause. And what happens in menopause or perimenopause is you're in this long period of time, roughly 10 years-ish, of time where your estrogen levels are slowly declining, but when they're declining, they're spiking and then falling really sharply. They're going up, down, up, down, up, down, and all sort of trending down. And that can impact the production of our serotonin, which is the happy neurotransmitter. That's the serotonin is what gets released when we have those feel-good feelings. And it also regulates our mood and our impulse control. And so when we have those rage moments, it's literally in our hormonal chaos, or it's as a result of the hormonal chaos. So I think that there's that part that we definitely need to acknowledge and understand that that is part of this initiation that we're going through. So the other path that I'm referring to are these societal expectations that are just pissing us off with good reason. And I want to talk a bit about what's going on there. First of all, there's this tendency to gaslight ourselves, where we make ourselves believe that we're sacrificing ourselves because we want to, because we value being selfless, because we ignore the life that we had hoped for in the place of one that we're living because we feel like we're so grateful for it, right? And in fact, we're fucking pissed that we had to suppress our dreams and desires in the first place, all the way back to when we were teenagers, when we were little girls. Like, what the fuck? So we're mad about life, what it is, what we thought it would be compared to what it is now, and we don't want to do it anymore. We're also angry at the impossible expectations placed on women. You gotta be sexy, but make sure you're not too sexy. You gotta be puritanical and demure, right? You have to be sweet, but don't be too sweet because we want you to be badass and strong too, like a mama bear, right? You have to be kind, but don't let people walk all over you because that's not cool. And you have to be a good mom, but make sure that you don't have needs of your own. You know, if you're a good mom, you want to make sure to put your kids first always, right? And it's fucking impossible to live a life as a midlife woman and actually live up to all of these expectations. And I think it's in midlife that most women reach this phase and this stage of understanding, like, I am so done with this. We're also pissed off about feeling shameful that we want more for ourselves and that we are being perceived as selfish because we want something more for ourselves, especially if, for all intents and purposes, everything on the outside, you know, from a societal expectation standpoint, looks, quote, great, right? You have a great life. You have so much to be thankful for. Why would you be complaining, right? And we're pissed about that. Like, I have every right to be unhappy. That is a feeling, and as a human being, I am here to feel. And I can have that emotion about my circumstances. And that emotion can help me to move toward change. That's what I want. I just want to be able to do that. And I want to have it seen and recognized. We're also being told to do more at this phase of life, especially by male doctors and sometimes even female doctors. When I've heard so many stories of midlife women going to their physicians and expressing the various symptoms of perimenopause. You know, I'm gaining weight, for example, and being told, oh, well, you got to exercise more. You have to eat more protein. You have to change your dietary choices. You have to shift your lifestyle. It's like being told to do more, instead of slowing down, for example, instead of maybe having a deeper understanding of the hormonal chaos that is going on and how it's going to change your body, and that it's okay. You know, if you gain a couple pounds, it's okay. You're still lovable, you know? And just that other, well, maybe not other, but fucking being mansplained to is enough to make me want to like fill the rest of this pod with so many F-bombs, but I've had a lot already. So, and then the subconscious toxic masculinity that can creep in, and this definitely goes for women as well as men, and I know I'm guilty of it myself. It's like growing up in this society and having misogyny so deeply rooted in our society makes us as women talk the talk. It's so ingrained that we cut ourselves off at the knees, sometimes without even realizing it. And let me tell you, if there's not a reason to have fucking rage, that's it. So listen, rage is an emotion, just like all the other emotions, like joy, like sadness, like rapture. It's an emotion. And I want you to sit with that for a moment and understand that it's not good or bad. Emotion, by definition, is just energy in motion. And we have to feel through it in order to process it. I think part of what happens is women equate rage with violence, and it does not have to equal violence at all. Like, rage can certainly lead to violence, but it doesn't have to. And this is so, so important because it is possible to feel rage and not express it violently. And we're going to talk about that. So it doesn't have to lead to aggression. You don't need to conflate it with aggression. We are going to talk about some ways that you can express rage in a few minutes, but suppressing rage will lead to health issues. You know, we have a cancer epidemic in our world, and I personally believe that a large part of this is due to us suppressing emotions. And so letting our rage be expressed is literally a self-care practice. It is so imperative. So I want to talk about rage from a human design perspective. If you don't have your chart, then hit pause and go to my website, www.lorilisai.com, LORILISAI.com, and go to get my chart. You can get your chart on my website, put in your birth details, and make sure you've got it. If you're driving or doing something else at the moment of this podcast, then just circle back around to this section and then listen to it when you're looking at your chart, unless, of course, you have your chart memorized and you know your undefined centers, because you're going to want to know what centers in your human design we're talking about as we go through these. So it's important to consider, how did we get here? How did we get to this point of feeling rage, right? And oftentimes it's when we are doing things for validation or to be seen in some way where we feel not enough. And one of the places that we can look at in our human design is our centers. And the centers are the little shapes in the body graph. So when you look at your human design chart, you've got like a bunch of triangles, there's a diamond in there, there are some squares. So those are called the centers or energy centers. And they roughly correlate with the chakra system. This is the part of human design that is connected to chakras. And basically what happens is when you have an undefined center or an open center, that means it has no color in it. And what can happen is this concept called the not self, which just means that it's where we are being who we are not designed to be. We are literally not being ourselves. And it's oftentimes where challenges are going to creep up in our lives. So I want to talk a little bit about each of the different centers. I'm going to start at the top of the chart and work my way down and explain to you what challenges you might be facing from the perspective of each center and where the rage might be coming from from a human design perspective. So let's go through this. If you've got an undefined head, then that feeling of needing to know the answer can add up and eventually lead to rage. So, do you find yourself avoiding intellectual conversation because you're afraid that you won't know the answer to something or you won't have it in the moment? This is a very undefined head issue. If you have an undefined ajna or mind, which is the next center down from the bottom of the chart, it's this need to be certain So if you are undefined in your mind, but you find yourself needing to be sure about something, or you find yourself being really inflexible in your thinking, this is you not being yourself. This is you taking in other people's energy and amplifying it. And it can definitely lead to some serious anger and rage. Let's talk about the throat. Everything in human design travels toward the throat. The head and the ajna travel down toward the throat to get things out of your mouth, and everything below the throat travels up to your throat to get through the mouth. And so when this center is undefined, it's about suppressing your voice or sharing just to be heard. Like not being willing to sit in silence, feeling like you have to say something in order to be validated or in order to feel like you have something to bring to the table. That's a very kind of not self-play for those who have undefined throats. If you have an undefined identity center, which is the diamond shape just beneath the throat, then you are in your not self. You are letting things pile up in terms of things that can piss you off when you are letting other people define who you are. Or maybe you're losing yourself in others. And one day you look around and you're like, who the hell am I? And you don't like who you are becoming or who you are acting like because it doesn't align with the things that you truly believe are important to you, your own personal values. So this is where you can come out of alignment, and that can piss you off. Your ego or heart center, if you are undefined here, that's the little triangle. If you're looking at your chart, it's on the right-hand side, the little guy. And this is a place where you can be feeling like you have to prove your worth. So where are you constantly working so hard, pushing yourself, trying to basically accomplish things on pure willpower because you feel like you have to prove something, and that accomplishing something is the only way that you will be deemed worthy. This is definitely something that can lead to a lot of anger. Your spleen is on, if you're looking at your chart, the left-hand side, it's that left triangle facing in toward the middle square. And that spleen is, if it's undefined, can be a center where we hold on to something for too long, where we let fear drive our actions and our decisions, or we let other people override our personal intuition. That can be a place where rage can come from. Moving into the center of the chart, the square right next to the spleen, the square is called the sacral. And if you have this undefined, not knowing when enough is enough is a surefire sign that you're probably going to be feeling some anger, some buildup, because you keep going and going and going and you just don't rest. And then you get pissed off and explode, potentially. Okay, moving on to the emotional center, which is the triangle on the right-hand side of the chart facing in toward the sacral. This is a center, it's your center for emotions. So if it's undefined, a lot of times what I see women doing is avoiding confrontation to avoid disappointing other people. And this is a highly, highly conditioned center. And it's really about those expectations of other people oftentimes. And because you're taking in and amplifying energy there, you don't want to feel that disappointment. You don't want to feel some of those more challenging emotions to feel. And so you change your actions in order to avoid them, in order to feel what the other person is emoting. And then the last center down at the bottom, the very bottom square, is called the root center. And when this is undefined, you can find yourself constantly rushing around to get shit done, feeling like you can never accomplish enough in order to truly relax. So it's that go, 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 do, gotta do, I have to get this done. I have 27 things on my to-do list just before 10 o'clock, and I need to do them all so that I can then go have breakfast with a friend of mine. You know, it's that bullshit. So these are some examples of places where you might be taking in energy from other people and amplifying it and getting into your quote, not self, which can lead to a lot of anger over time. So, what do we do about all this? What do we do about being pissed off about your life and knowing that there's a difference between what it is and what you thought you would be and the fact that you just don't want to do it anymore? Honestly, you're going to reach a point where you just are over your own shit. And what I mean by your own shit is this acceptance of, well, this is just the way it's going to be. This is how I have to function in order to be part of this society. You're going to get fed up with behaving, quote unquote, behaving to fit in with societal norms. And here's what I want you to understand. Rage can be a powerful, powerful tool for transformation. It is not something to be ashamed of. And how it evolves can actually become something really, truly sacred when you honor it, when you feel through it. So I'd love to invite you, me, all of us as midlife women, to start framing rage as an invitation to reconnect with who we are in our authentic selves. Rage is not about destruction. It's about reclamation. It's about reclaiming who we are. It's essentially a portal for stepping into our wild woman. So how do we get there? How do we step through this portal? I love human design. I love to use it as a tool. And the first thing I would say is looking at your chart, looking at where you're undefined, asking yourself, have you been falling into this idea of your not self? Where have you been falling into these patterns? Where have you been doing some of the things that I was talking about, like feeling like you need to know all the answers if you have an undefined head, for example? And so taking some time to journal about that, to walk and think about it, really give yourself time to reflect on it. Try to think about examples where this has happened in your life and think about how did it feel in your body. Even as you're thinking about it, tune into what your body is telling you. Where do you feel it in your body when you think about that time when you were with a circle of friends and you didn't know, this one important fact and everybody else seemed to know and you didn't and you felt embarrassed? Where do you feel that in your body? And then how can you forgive yourself and understand that that is part of your design? You didn't come here with an undefined head to know all of the answers. Instead, you came here to be inspired by answers, to have antennas out ready to receive answers. Talk about it with friends. Have these conversations, instead of talking about the weather or what your kids are doing next weekend or, the next show that you're going to go see or the next race that you're going to run. Dive a little deeper and talk about this stuff. Where have we been as friends being in our not selves? Where have we been tamping our emotions down in order to fit in, even with one another? I want to talk about this concept of rage rituals as another thing to do to step into this portal and start processing some of this rage. As I was doing some research for this podcast, I stumbled on the concept of rage rituals. And let me tell you, there's even an article written in USA Today about this concept. So you know that it's coming a little bit more mainstream. And the idea is basically getting together and processing anger. And usually it's women coming together, doing some rituals, calling it a ritual, to just process and honor the anger that they have within. So some examples. And I would say that these are kind of DIY rage rituals that you can do on your own. Of course, you can certainly pull a group of friends together and do these together. But I also don't want you to wait on these things. You definitely do not need to get together with friends in order to do these. So one thing you can do is scream. A lot of these things are going to tap into the beauty of that vagus nerve and allow it to support you. And screaming is one of them. So, if you live in a city or a place that's super populated, or screaming in your house is not really, you don't want to wake the neighbors or disturb other people around you, then scream in your car. Roll up the windows and scream in your damn car. Go out into the woods. If you live in a wooded area, scream in the woods. Shaking your body can be a really great way to process anger. Thinking about what it is that makes you so angry and then shaking it out just like your dog does or your animals do. Another example of something you can do is singing. And, I'm not necessarily talking about singing that is, what's the word I'm looking for? Beautiful, or I'm thinking of guardrails. The word isn't coming to me, but I'm thinking of, trying to kind of put guardrails on your singing. That's not what I want you to do. It's maybe a little closer to screaming, sing, that kind of thing. Put on a song and sing really fucking loud. Put on some Pink. I love singing to Pink, and she's great for when you're pissed. Dance. Another thing that, if you know me at all, I love to dance, and dancing when you're pissed off can be another way to process how you're feeling. And, I think this is related to shaking. You can shake and dance and combine just like body movement, but going back to the idea of rage being an emotion, and emotion being energy in motion. You are literally moving the emotion out of your body. Another thing you could do is some kind of creative outlet, aside from moving your body, creating something like rage paint or rage draw, scribble all over a piece of paper or a poster board or something big, a canvas or something. I'm going to share a story about a friend of mine who is a potter, and she used to create these pieces of pottery, and she is a bit of a perfectionist, and if there was one little thing wrong with them, at least this is what she said, she would take it out back and smash it on this giant rock. And honestly, I think what was actually going on with her was she had a lot of anger, and this was a way that she felt like she could express it without hurting anyone. I would just add that maybe put some safety glasses on before you do something like that, if you're breaking things. But this is something, even when I was teaching and supporting students in school, this was a trend starting to happen where they would have a space outside where students could go out and break plates. And they would cordon off an area, had safety glasses, big rock, and just take a plate and smash it on the ground. And there's this catharsis that happens when you are able to break something. It's a huge, huge release. So I would encourage you to do that. Another thing that you could do that I used to encourage my boys to do when they were feeling really angry is punch your pillow. Punch a punching bag. Punch where you're not going to hurt yourself, of course, but balling your fists and expressing your anger with a really strong movement from your body can be very, very supportive. And using something like a pillow or your mattress can be another way to have a cathartic release there. So all of these examples of things to do are essentially ways to release this anger, and they are how you move through this portal into a deeper understanding of yourself. And then I would also suggest that after you do these things, you take some time for reflection as well. When was the last time you felt angry? When was the last time you allowed yourself to feel angry? What was that anger trying to tell you? And then what have you been suppressing your anger about? And I think that question is probably like an onion question. You know, the first thing that comes to mind may not be what's underneath, but it's a good place to start a journaling practice, for example, where if you start writing about it, just tap into automatic writing and see what comes out. Keep moving your pen across the paper, writing words and words and words, even if they don't make sense to you, until something comes out that may uncover what the actual source of your anger is. So just to wrap up here, I want to remind you that your rage is not something to fear. It's a sacred, sacred guide pointing you back to yourself. It's information from your body telling you this is not who you are and redirecting you to who you are. So if this is something that you find yourself struggling with, I would love to chat with you about it and help you uncover your not self themes. The things that I covered today are really just the tip of the iceberg, being that it's a podcast and I don't want to have you here for hours and hours. Each center has real depth within it, and there are other things that are going on in each center, but the questions that I pulled for us today are the big ones, and they're a great place to start to help you uncover what might be going on. And human design coaching can help you to move through that anger and step into your authenticity. Coaching can help you balance the parts of you that are defined, which are the gifts that you have to give, versus those parts of you that are undefined, where you're taking on other people's energy and probably acting like it's your own, which is leading you to a number of emotions, including rage, that maybe you want to feel a little bit less of, or you want to release. So I encourage you to book a call. I have the link in the show notes. And then also a reminder that our Wild Women by Design retreat is a great place to come into community with other women who are embracing this wild woman archetype and moving into that. And it will be an opportunity for you to not only practice moving into her in Costa Rica, what a beautiful place, while you are also being pampered and loved, but also being part of the community beforehand and knowing the women that you're going to be traveling with and supporting one another. So to check that out, that will also be in the show notes. And just a reminder that you rage and all of your emotions it only takes 90 seconds to feel an emotion completely. This is like studies have been done about how long does it actually take to feel through something. And oftentimes we resist because we don't want to feel, versus if we just let ourselves feel through it, it will really only be about a minute and a half if we can let go of it afterward. And so if you can get somewhere where you feel safe, let it rip. And then Follow up with a guided meditation or some journaling or something to help you stabilize your nervous system, because expressing the rage is probably going to take a lot out of you. So I just want you to be compassionate with yourself and also really fucking proud of yourself, because this is not something that is easy to do as a woman, to feel through the rage, to give yourself permission even to feel through the rage. So it's okay to be pissed. Society has given you dozens and dozens of reasons to feel enraged. Our hormonal chaos at this time of life in perimenopause is also adding to the mix. So please be kind to yourself and understand that not only is this rooted in society, but it's also rooted in our biology. And so the best thing that we can do for ourselves is to allow ourselves to feel it to heal it. All right, let me know how you decide to express your anger. Reach out to me on socials and just let me know, like, how are you showing, how are you expressing, how are you feeling through the rage? Thanks for tuning in to Midlife by Design today. I hope you're inspired to let out all the sacred rage, to channel it for your own growth, and to leverage it for the change that you want to see in the world. If you want to tap into the power of your own unique gifts to do that, book a free call with me and let's talk options. Don't let another day pass when you're not living your unique purpose. Don't kick the can down the road. It's time to shake shit up and leave behind living on autopilot. Get clarity, forget restlessness and feeling unfulfilled. You're meant to live midlife by design. I'm sending you strength to release what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and clarity to fully be who you came here to be.